Every one of us has made some dumb mistake in our lives. And most of us are able to move forward from that. It's unjust, it's unfair, it's inequitable to continue to punish people for a thing that they are trying to move forward from. Like if you want people to truly move forward and get better, then help them move forward and get better.
I'm here outside of Como Conservatory, where conservation is on display. But often when we think of conservation, we don't think about justice. How can we put justice at the center and ensure that we're not only thinking about the impacts of solutions, but about who's part of the solution? Today I'm talking with Emily Mauter, who's the Director of Advancement at Repowered, focused on addressing electronic waste and breaking down barriers of impact for people who've experienced incarceration.
I'm Emily Mauter. I'm the Director of Advancement at Repowered in St. Paul. We are an electronics recycling and refurbishing social enterprise. We also have a social mission to provide reintegration and workforce development opportunities for people with a history of incarceration. I personally have been a fundraiser my whole career. I am a younger sister. I am a Michigan State Spartan. I'm an Aries. So I grew up in Detroit. We grew up in city limits. My parents still live in the house that we grew up in, but my sister and I went to Catholic school in the suburbs. And our family just has always been civically minded in some way. And so like one of my earliest memories, I went to vote with my mom in 1984 and they had like little kid voting machines set up. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm gonna vote. I'm gonna vote for Walter Mondale, Geraldine Ferraro, because that's what we talked about. And like you sit down and it says like Mickey Mouse and like Donald Duck. And like I just turn around and I'm like, Mom, where's Geraldine Ferraro? And like all the like ladies working the polls all start giggling and stuff. But like I was there to vote. I knew what I wanted to do. So that is like one of my earliest memories. My mom was an intern with the Congressional Black Caucus. My dad ran like the Men's Residence Hall Association in college. My mom talks about like taking my sister out to picket school closings in our neighborhood. Like we've just always been like this. I'm the youngest of two. When my mom had my sister, she went back to her office job, then decided when she was pregnant with me that she didn't want to go back to work in an office. So she opened her own business, which is a daycare. And she ran that for like literally my whole life. There were always kids in our house, but they were always like, there was almost always a kid my age too. So I had lots of friends to play with and just being used to sharing your space and what you have with other people. And like everything is a community. So I guess then it shouldn't be a surprise that I end up working in a way that I can try and do some good work in my community. Once I got to college, I originally was a criminal justice major for a year. I remember we had one class and we went on a field trip to a prison or jail. And the person that was like leading the tour was like, if you can't be mean, you're in the wrong line of work. And I was like, well, A, I can't be mean, so let me change majors. Yeah. And B, why do you have to be mean to do this job? So I changed majors, and I just ended up in nonprofits.
I'm curious to know what challenges there were along your journey.
So like the last housing bubble in like the mid to late 2000s, I bought a house. Because it's like, oh, you're supposed to buy a house. Housing market's hot, buy a house. I was young, I was like 26, probably should not have been approved for a mortgage, but as a young person of color, young woman of color, I got like a crappy adjustable rate mortgage. And so like after a year, my mortgage payment doubled. And it was just like, okay. So then I got a second job. So then I'm working like 75, 80 hours a week and just like not getting anywhere. And I owed 10 times what it would have sold for, literally 10 times. People say like, if you're renting, you're throwing your money away, but like, I don't think renting is throwing your money away. I ended up having to foreclose on it, which sucked, but like, you know, what are you gonna do? If a business decides to cut its losses, that's a smart decision. If a person makes a similar situation, they're irresponsible. Right. And so that sucked. That sucked a lot to just, there's a lot of like personal like failure that you feel like you've dealt with and all this kind of stuff, you know. Now it's off my credit report and my credit is great. But like, you do what you're supposed to do and then like the system works against you. And like, luckily that was like just a house, but like if it's a more serious situation, like our work readiness employees. You're trying to do what you're supposed to do to get out of the hole that you're in, and it's very hard. So having been in similar but not the exact same circumstances, I just have empathy, I guess, for folks who are trying their best.
What is your job day to day even?
Yeah, so my job is bringing in philanthropic contributions to Repowered. So any donations that we would get from foundations, from corporate sponsors, from people, it's building those relationships and bringing that revenue in to support our mission, and kind of making sure that we've got good relationships out in the community. At Repowered, we're a social enterprise, so we do two things. Our environmental impact is that we are an electronics processor, so we take in unneeded electronics from businesses and individuals in the Twin Cities, and then we either responsibly dispose of those things to reduce the environmental impact, or if they're things that can be refurbished, we'll refurbish and resell them at low cost. So we also provide affordable electronics to the community. And then our social impact, in addition to all that environmental impact, is that we have a work readiness and reintegration program for folks that have barriers to employment. So usually that's past involvement with the criminal legal system. Sometimes that includes a history of housing instability, sometimes a history of substance abuse, all that kind of stuff. So folks who are trying to re-enter the job market. You know, a belief that we have here is that we're all defined by our futures. And so, you know, someone was maybe at not their best decision-making point in their life, did something maybe that is not something that they're proud of. They've done, you know, they've served their time. They want to be able to move forward. And you shouldn't have to carry that with you forever if you've done what you need to do to make it right. The odd thing is that there are so many hurdles and regulations for folks coming out of incarceration that it almost makes it impossible to not revert back to those things. So like if you can't get a job, you have to live. So how else are you gonna make money if people won't hire you? You're gonna resort to probably not the best way to go about making money if that's the only option available to you. Every one of us has made some dumb mistake in our lives. And most of us are able to move forward from that. We've, you know, had to make up for it somehow, and then we get the opportunity to move forward and not have that continue to weigh us down forever. Some of us also are lucky enough to be in circumstances where you don't have to pay as hard of a penalty for making those kinds of mistakes. It's unjust, it's unfair, it's inequitable to continue to punish people for a thing that they are trying to move forward from. Like if you want people to truly move forward and get better, then help them move forward and get better.
How is the work that Repowered does a climate solution?
E-waste is like one of the largest growing waste streams. And so providing an opportunity for people to have a safe way to recycle those items, safe in terms of environmental impact and data security. One means that those things won't just get thrown in the garbage. And the other is that, you know, electronics, all the parts inside them, there's a lot of like precious materials. There's things like gold and cobalt and all this kind of stuff that has to get mined from somewhere. It's like here in Minnesota, up in the Boundary Waters area, like there's a lot of mining up there. And so I know mining and environmental stability in Minnesota in particular is like a very salient issue. And so that we don't have to keep kind of stripping the earth of all these materials, why don't we repurpose what we already have? And either, again, buy a refurbished item or kind of take all of the precious metals out of the existing items and try and repurpose them for new electronics.
Often people experience climate grief. Often people experience climate anxiety. Are those things that you experience, and how do you navigate those things?
I do what I can to try and focus on what I can do. And so the work that we do here is something I can do. The fact that there is a place that I or anyone can responsibly dispose of their electronics is a thing that you can do. You know, there's such a push for electronic vehicles, but like those batteries themselves, like all of the precious materials that you need to mine to make those batteries, like that might not ultimately be the best solution, but what are you supposed to do? Trying to focus on what I can control, and working in a place like Repowered that does provide a solution helps, because then you can kind of see like every day some actual action that's happening to try and mitigate some climate anxiety.
What's the impact that you want to make personally and as Repowered?
You know, we believe in fair chances for people, planet, and technology. So that's the impact we want to see is, you know, helping more folks reintegrate post incarceration. We want to, you know, try and mitigate the effects of e-waste and, you know, all of that, everything that does to the planet. And then also providing affordable technology for people that don't have access. And so that's the impact that Repowered wants to make. You know, those are kind of three big goals. People want to help, I want to help. The impact that I want to make is to encourage people to do good work and to have fun doing it. Oddly enough, my laugh is a superpower. Anyone that knows me knows my laugh. It is notorious. We all need some joy sparked in our lives. So that is one. It's always good to lighten the mood. Like, you can do good things in the world and it's not always a grind. You can have fun while changing things.
How can people support Repowered?
So if you're in the Twin Cities, you can support us by recycling your electronics with us or purchasing from us. If you are local or national or international, you can support us by donating. And you can also support us anywhere by examining your beliefs on reintegration and people with histories of incarceration. And even I personally, in the time that I've worked here, had to kind of just think about some things, you know? Like, again, when you say like, oh, this category of people in general, it's one thing, but then I meet a person who falls into that category and I'm like, okay, this is different now. So just interrogate your beliefs a little bit.
Is there advice that you have for your younger self?
Trust your gut. Just, you know, if you know what you want to do, then do it. You don't need someone else to tell you, yes, that's the right thing to do, because they're not in the same circumstances. So trust my gut would be one thing I would tell my younger self. People want to help, so accept their help. You don't have to do it all alone. You have to do it the hard way. Whoever is willing to look out for you and give you that boost, take it. You don't need to prove anything by like doing it the hard way. Just people want to see you succeed, so let them help you. Don't let the fact that there are people who probably don't want to help, don't let that stop you from finding the people that do.
I wonder, like, what gives you hope?
At the end of the day, I believe that people ultimately want to do good things for each other and other people. And I guess if I'm looking at the world that way, I see those things. And so what gives me hope is that other people have hope. And there are so many terrible things happening in the world these days, but despite all that, people are still working forwards together to make things better for each other. So that gives me hope. I'm Emily Mauter. I'm the Director of Advancement at Repowered in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I'm helping the world reach Drawdown by addressing e-waste and barriers to opportunity.